Hi there, it's Susan from SG Development Solutions. Today I'd like to talk to you about having difficult conversations with your boss. Now, if you've just read my recent blog on how to manage my boss, you may be sitting there saying, okay, great Susan, I understand what you're saying, but how do I actually do it? You see, at the end of my recent blog, what I said is that to change and improve the relationship with your boss, you have to take charge and do something different. And a great starting point is to help your boss see your view of the world. So in this video blog, what I'd like to do is explore that question of, well, how do I actually do that? And to do that, I'm going to introduce you to 4 very easy, very simple steps. The first step is to make the time to have the conversation. The second step is to plan and prepare what you're going to say. The third step is to anticipate a positive outcome. And the fourth step is just do it. So let me talk you through those different steps. So the first step is to make time to have that conversation. Now, if you wait for the right time to have this conversation, you'll become old and grey waiting, because the right time will never come up. What you need to do is look at your working week and say, when would be the best time for me and for my boss to sit down and have this conversation? Perhaps the beginning of your week is particularly busy and time precious. Perhaps mornings are more time precious than afternoons. So look at your week and say, okay, when can we both commit some time to this? Now, you might work in an environment where actually predicting what's going to happen is really difficult and you have to be very reactive. Even in that situation, you still need to make the time, because as I said before, the right time will never come up. So it's about thinking, okay, when can I see a window of opportunity that I'm going to plan to have this conversation? Now, in both situations, you need to be flexible, because something might come up and you need to rearrange. But you need to start off from the point of view of being committed to that date and that time that you set. Let me ask you a question. If your best friend phoned you and said, look, I really need to talk to you, and you arranged a date and a time to meet up for a drink and have a conversation, would you stick to that arrangement? If your child was running in their last ever school sports day and you'd arranged to go and watch them, would you stick to that arrangement? Okay, so you can do it. When it's really important to you, you can stick to that commitment, to that time that you said you will do something. So it's about saying, okay, in the scheme of things, how important is having this difficult conversation with my boss? The more important it is to you, the more important the outcome is to you, the more likely you are to stick to it. So that's step number 1. Number 2 is to plan and prepare what you're going to say. If you don't want to get into the situation where you're stumbling over your words, you're forgetting things you wanted to say, your boss takes over, or you walk away from the conversation thinking, I didn't quite get my point across, then the best thing you can do is to plan and prepare what you want to say. Writing it down also helps, because it helps you to be more clear and concise about what it is you actually want to say. Stops you waffling. So what you need to do is you need to ask yourself the question, what is the real issue here? And by answering that question, what you will be doing is identifying what is it that your boss does or doesn't do that you want them to change. Try and stay away from judgmental comments or judgmental opinions or thoughts about why they do or don't do the thing you want them to change, because that's in danger of getting you into argument territory. If you can be really objective and factual and stick to the actual behaviours, the things they do, and be able to describe the impact that has on you, that's far more effective and far more likely for you to have an adult-to-adult conversation with your boss. So make the time to have the conversation, plan and prepare. Now, the third step, which is arguably the most important, is to anticipate a positive outcome. If you imagine this conversation and you imagine it going a little bit like you say something, your boss gets defensive, you then react to that, you get into a difficult conversation, your boss turns it around so you end up feeling like the problem, or you walk away thinking, okay, there's not going to be any difference, my boss nodded, but actually I know they're not going to make any changes. If that's how you anticipate the conversation going, guess what? That's exactly what's going to happen. You don't imagine that Usain Bolt anticipated losing the 100-metre final at the Olympic Games in 2012, do you? You don't imagine that Andy Murray anticipated losing the US Open Tennis Championship in 2012. Nope, those guys anticipated a positive outcome. The outcome you anticipate, the outcome you imagine in your mind's eye, is very likely to become your reality. So if you anticipate the conversation going the way you want it to go, you're much more likely to have that as an outcome. So take some time to to picture in your mind what the outcome is that you want to have. To create a really vivid picture in your mind of what it sounds like, what it will feel like, what you will see going on around you. And the more vivid you can create that picture, the more likely you are to create a reality that will match that picture. So make time to have the conversation, plan and prepare what you're going to say, anticipate that positive outcome, and then just get out there and do it. So we all can be guilty of procrastinating, and sometimes we actually quite like to have that difficult conversation hanging around, that difficult situation, just so that we've got something to moan about. But actually, if it's really important to you to resolve this situation, then you need to be able to just get out there and actually do it, take some action. So if you've planned the time, you've planned what you're going to say, and you're anticipating a positive outcome, that should create more of a motivation for you to confront the situation, for you to want to resolve it, and to better deal with the distractions that are inevitably going to come up that might distract you away from having the conversation. So it's about saying to yourself, okay, what are the benefits to me having this conversation? And it might help you to think about them in terms of mutual benefits. So the benefit to you clearly is you will regain the motivation and energy for your work because you'll be being managed more effectively. But the outcome, the positive outcome, the mutual benefit for your boss is, and they will thank you for this eventually, is that you're opening their eyes to an aspect of their management and leadership style that they perhaps were blind to. They weren't aware of it. And eventually they will thank you for making them aware of it, because they will ultimately be able to become a more effective manager and get the best out of you. So there's a mutual benefit there, and that can really help to spur you on to stop procrastinating and get out there and do it. So make the time, plan and prepare what you're going to say, anticipate that positive outcome, and then get out there and do it. And once you do, I'd love to hear the positive results that you get. Thanks for listening.